Hello,
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. And you?
Great. I wanted to make sure that we got signal. Then I'm going to put the camera on a stand. Okay, so tell me. I know you're going to sing me a song, which I'm very excited about. And did you want to interview me too?
Yes, if that's
Great.
possible.
All right. I'm ready to go, babe.
All right. Hello, dear viewers. Today, my guest is an incredible American singer-songwriter, Sophie B. Hawkins. Hello, Sophie.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. Is it all Ukraine?
Yeah, I think so, and maybe your fans, but yeah, my
Fantastic.
audience is mostly from Ukraine. So,
Wow.
yeah, the first question I think is where would be very interesting for all Ukrainians is of course that more than 500 days have passed since the beginning of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And what do you assume about this as a politically active person?
Well, my first reaction is that I want America to be more involved in ending it, but I wouldn't want America to get involved in the awful way that sometimes has happened, which is fueling another conflict. So, in a way, I see what's happening from our end, and we're not there. So I could say all these political things which sound good in America, but I don't think they sound good to Ukrainians because it's basically just based on theory and history. But it does feel like to me, I hope that America doesn't go into a more right wing direction because I fear that this won't be just a Ukraine problem, it will be a global problem even more than it is. And actually, what I want to say mainly is that it is a global crisis, and it's up there with the environmental crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis, and we really all have to pull together as humans to fix this because it is a human insanity that has caused it. And as far as I'm concerned, that this man, Putin, is absolutely should be in an insane asylum. And that is the biggest problem with a lot of people who are in power and a lot of people who are destroying the earth is they're not mentally stable. So is that a stupid answer for you? I can't even imagine because my heart goes out to every single human being who is suffering in Ukraine. And it's something where in America, when it first started to happen, we were only talking about it. We were crying about it. But unfortunately, the world gets numb and gets used to these things and has since the history of humanity, just like abuse in the home. Abuse in the home, it's a traumatizing thing. Then you dissociate from it, you put it away, and then you go on and unfortunately get used to it. It's the same thing on the level of countries.
Thank you for your position. I absolutely agree with you. Thank you very much. Also, unfortunately, Sinead O'Connor sadly passed away recently, and you posted
Yes.
about it on your Instagram. What kind of
Yes.
person was she?
Well, when I met Sinead, and I only got to meet her once, we did the Dylan Fest at Madison Square Garden, and I got to sing with her, and I wrote about it on the Instagram that she had already done her song first, her solo song. We had all done our solo songs. And she was interesting because she took off even into her own song. She always departed from what was supposed to be done, you know? She always decided to do what was right in the moment for a cause that was bigger than her, it seemed. And people mistook that. Can I tell you something interesting?
Yes.
You know what I learned? So this I learned this since I posted the thing on Instagram. When she ripped up the picture of the Pope, I don't know if everyone knows this, but that was a message to her mother. And this goes back to abuse in the home. What made Sinead was surviving the abuse of her mother, which, if you've read her autobiography or listened to it, you'll understand is it was a brutal relationship, totally so sad. So when Sinead ripped it up, it was a message to her mother to say, you don't win. You can't hide behind the Pope, behind religion, behind your fake values. You abused me. You practically destroyed me. And here I am on Saturday Night Live, and this is what you get. And everyone, a lot of people took it as this global thing against all religion, but the seed of it was to her mother, and that's the same as what we're talking about Putin. The seed of his sickness, not that he's compared to Sinead's mother, but it's the same thing. The abuse starts with one person, with this grievance, this mentally ill person, and then it ends up rippling like a stone in the water. So I thought it was interesting to learn that Sinead's real problem in life was the abuse in her family, and that caused her to be really successful, and then it also caused her to be really self-destructive, like all artists, and it caused her to be really strong and really fragile. So the girl that I met was incredibly defiant, but then when we got off stage, she threw up. She was so fragile. Like, you understand what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the person I met. She was so strong-willed and strong-minded, but then it just took one little thing and we all fall apart.
You were born in New York City and attended the Manhattan School of Music for a year as a percussionist, but left it for a music career. Why did you decide so?
Well, I loved the process of getting into the music school. It's a really difficult music school to get into. It's a classical music school, so I had to play, Bach interventions. I have abuse on the mind. Bach inventions on the 6-foot grand marimba and the timpani. I had to play Beethoven's Fifth, and it was fantastic to do the work to get in and to become that good a musician. But then once I was in, I found that I wasn't creatively growing as much as I wanted to, which only I could do for myself. I could only push myself. So I did all the classes, and it was, nonstop work and learning, which was great. The orchestra, the ensembles, the new music, the jazz band. But then at a certain point, I started to write lyrics on the wall of the practice room because I was just needing to become a songwriter, which is to say, needing to express my own stories. And I didn't really know that I was going to become a songwriter at that point, but I did start playing drums with bands who I thought were great, like these punk bands. I started to play drum set for them because I thought their lyrics were great and their attitude was great and their story was great. So there it was, the late 80s, and I'm playing with bands like the Pink Band, and then they let me put in a song of mine, and I would sing it from the drum set. And then it just got inside of me that's what I had to do. I didn't have time to finish music school. And I thought, someday I'll go back to music school when I'm in my 60s or 70s. But right now I want to do my music, and I want to be out there on the scene with what's happening with artists,
Yeah. Your debut album, Tons and Tales, was released in 1992. It achieved worldwide commercial success, earning a Grammy Award nomination for Best New Artist in 1993. The single Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover went to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 Singles chart in the US. Do you remember as you did this song?
Yes. Do you remember when I wrote it?
Yeah, so the
Oh, of
process of
course.
making and so on.
I'll never forget the day it came out. I'd written hundreds of songs before Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover. But then the day it came out, I remember I was in my apartment in Manhattan, and, I was so tired from working, and my hands slipped and did that beautiful chord change in the beginning and of the song, which is sort of jazz. And somebody pointed out to me the other day, which I think is true because I studied jazz music primarily, actually, Elvin Jones and Coltrane and Max Roach. And I used to transcribe to the 30-second note Elvin Jones drum solos. That's how intense I was. So when I started to write the pop music, always the jazz influence was coming in. So Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover came out, and I said, this is a big song. And I was excited but scared because I also knew it was going to change my life from being this, scrappy musician writing songs to suddenly I was going to have to be responsible for, this is my career. This is what I'm going to be. Sophie B. Hawkins, a singer-songwriter, which was it was a lot more pressure. But anyways, I did it. I followed it. I finished the song. I demoed it in my apartment on the 8-track reel-to-reel tapes. And then I held on to it. And about a year later, I was discovered because I was a coat check. I was a coat check in a restaurant called Orso in Manhattan, a theater restaurant. And Mark Cohen, I don't know if you know Mark Cohen, he wrote Walking in Memphis. He's a Grammy winning artist too. He wrote that song. Anyways, so Mark Cohen was just a jingle singer, and he came in and he liked my speaking voice. So he said, you're probably a beautiful singer. And I said, Mark, I'm a terrible singer, but here's my demo tape. And I gave him a cassette tape with like 50 songs on it. And Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover was on that. He left it on the desk in a jingle studio. A jingle is a commercial studio. And someone picked it up and they called me, and his name was Rob Shuckett, and he said, you gotta be making records. And that was basically the story. And then I had 7 record labels wanting to sign me. But after years and years and years, I couldn't even get a publishing deal, hundreds and hundreds of songs, hundreds of performances, hundreds of bands. It was really, but it was all wonderful. It was great. I was working as a waitress, as a coat check, anything I could do, doing my music. This was after music school, and it was a great time. And then I had, like I said, to be responsible for this career.
Yeah. And how did it change your life, your career after this song?
Yes. I mean, and it's really such an autobiographical song. And people say, who did you write the song about? And I say, to me, songs are triggered from an event in the present, but they really go back to your childhood stories, and your whole psyche is involved in writing a great song. So it's not really about somebody. It's basically about me and my drama growing up and developing as an artist, as a human. So I did know it was going to be the big mother of my career. And I'm really glad, knowing that I didn't sell out, because there were so many opportunities to make it more pop, or to make it maybe not 3 choruses, 2 choruses. Maybe they said, don't have every chorus different. I said, no, every chorus has to be different. It has to be a 16-bar bridge. I have to keep that 3rd verse way at the end. Like, I was really clear that I had to come out with the biggest possible statement I could, which was the most original statement. I did not want to kowtow to the industry at the time. And that luckily set me up for my whole career.
In 1998, you cooperated with famous record company Sony Music. How difficult was this collaboration for you?
Well, they were difficult because Sony was Columbia when I signed. And Columbia had Billie Holiday, and they had George Michael, and they had Bob Dylan. They had all the artists I love, and they had a great history of great artists, and that's why I chose them. Then suddenly they turned into Sony because they were now a corporation bought by Japan, answering to shareholders, and the whole music industry started to change from an artist-driven industry. And what I mean by that is, people didn't used to say, we're going to tell the artist what to do, what to write. They used to say, let's make it commercial, and let's just give the artist drugs. So they keep doing it. But then it turned into an industry that was very corporate. Like, wait, we have to make sure that our shareholders are happy. It wasn't make sure that the artist is creating, make sure that shareholders are happy. There's a whole nother take. And it's really gotten that way even more because, so yes, to answer your question, it was difficult because I wasn't just talking to people who loved music. I was answering to shareholders all over the world. And that every artist was, and it really destroyed a lot of the integrity of why we love the 70s songwriting, because nobody messed with them. They might have not given them the greatest deals. They may have not always given them credit, but they didn't mess with the art. Now they were messing with the art. So that's why my fight was so big. And it's gotten, in a way, even worse as a corporate, because when you think of the digital rights, like somebody went in and bought up the digital rights, and way before any artist knew that everything was going to be on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and whatever. And there's no way that we can now profit because these tiny few little people own all the digital rights. How'd that happen? Yeah. And so now we're answering to algorithms, which is even worse than answering to shareholders.
In an interview with Rockseller magazine in 2012, you said that you identified yourself as omnisexual. Do you remember as you felt it? So it was like a coming out. How did you feel?
Well, I thought it was the truth. And because I was asked, by the New York Times, in that moment, it was my first big interview. And I knew that my answer had to last for my whole life, and it had to include my history. And so I said what was true for me and what I had always felt. So I articulated that my sexuality isn't based on my partner's gender, and it's not based on my gender. It's this creative feeling, and it's a romantic feeling, and it's a spiritual feeling, and it's based on the soul of the person. And it really has nothing to do with their body parts. So I said omni because omni includes all, and all equals one. And I felt I could live that for the rest of my life and it would be true. And that was so important for me to be truthful. And it's turned out that that philosophy or that truth has taken root because my son's friends 2 years ago came home and they said, by the by, they were omnisexual. They had no idea that I invented that word, that I coined that phrase. And so obviously, you know who else said it was Nicole Kidman said it about Virginia Woolf when she did The Hours. And you know who else said it was David Geffen, but I'm going to take credit for it. I started it. So not that many people identify as omnisexual, but it really does, it really is good for the creative spirit.
Yeah, I think it was really brave. And
Thank
even
you.
nowadays, because we still have these problems with when people care about others' orientations and so on. I don't really understand this, but I think it was
Yes.
really brave of you, and it is really cool when people see that they are not alone in this.
I agree with you so much. And I do think there may, like you said, it's better, but there's always steps back. And that's the thing with these very conservative movements, political, how you started the interview, is that these are people who repress their drives become monsters. And when other people repress a child, it can turn the child into a monster. And it's really horrible to try to put a label on someone and make them stick to it when somebody is crying out and saying, no, I need to define myself. It's one of the most basic human needs is the need for autonomy, the need to create yourself. It's across the board, always been in history. And why can't we just realize that and then, change our whole attitude about how we approach each other?
In 2012, you starred as Janis Joplin in the play Room 105, which was written and directed by your longtime girlfriend and manager Gigi Gaston. Could you tell about this more, please?
Yes, it was death defying. Gigi thought of it because she thought I had to do a show that would put me into another light because she was like, how are you gonna be relevant, in your career and whatever. So she thought, I know Sophie should play Janis Joplin. And I said, are you kidding me? I can never play Janis Joplin. First of all, our voices are completely different. She's a coloratura soprano who then developed her sound. But she was an opera singer, from when she was a kid. Her mother was an opera singer and taught her to be an opera singer since she was very young. So for me to play that kind of role, I was a drummer who became a singer simply to write songs. But let me tell you something, I did so much work on that. It was the hardest thing musically I've ever done because I had to transcribe all of her songs, phrase by phrase. Let me tell hey, everybody, you have to be quiet and go outside so I'm on an interview. Okay? Okay, Esther? Esther, guys, I am on an interview with Ukraine. You have to be quiet, okay? Thank you so much. It's Sunday here. So, basically what I did was I had to transcribe all of her, even her, her little syllables. And then I had to learn how I was going to do it as a singer, as a performer, because the range was so challenging and also her sound is so unique. And I have a insight, I think, because I also learned her, I read all the books about her, and I learned her as a person from when she was 9 years old. And I put myself into her shoes, and I wrote songs as her, because that's how I learned. I wrote songs as her, I developed a whole persona as her, and this had nothing to do with the play. This was even before the play started. That's my little girl, Esther. She's outside, but she doesn't know we can still hear her, and I'm sorry if it's affecting.
No, everything is alright.
Oh, they're so cute.
Actually, the
very
next
cute.
question, yeah, I wanted to ask about your children, but go on.
So anyways, just to make a long story short, was the biggest part of playing Janis was developing my version of her. And it actually worked because I feel like I have an insight into Janis Joplin and her sound, and I feel like I know when she created her sound, but I'm going to say that for my memoir because it's so important to me that I did that work almost as a musicologist, and that I have this inside of my heart, this incredible discovery, and I want to share it with everyone, but I want to be able to share it in the most deep way, so I want to write about it. But then on stage was a whole other thing. It was really successful. We had people like so many famous people. Their names will come to me. Not Tom Cruise. It'll come to me. Came to the show, and it was a very moving show. And Janis Joplin's friends came to the show, and they gave me her jewelry and they gave me her clothes because they thought I was really embodying her, and that was the death-defying part as a human. Because every night before the show, I would meditate and I would feel her coming into me, and then I would do the show as her, and then I would have to go home and become Sophie because I was a mom. So that kind of segues into the next part. Is I was a new mother. I had a 4-year-old child. He was 3 or 4, Dashiell, and I had to just be this mom by day and then Janis Joplin by night. It was really what a crazy time.
So we like heard your children, and my next question would be, actually, I think in a lot of countries there is a stereotype that a woman should have children till 30 years old, and that, for example, in 50 years or older, it is almost like impossible to have children or to give birth.
Yes.
But you're that example when you gave birth and you buried a child after 50 years. And could you tell about your experience? Is this really so? How many people tell?
This is true, and I think this is the one gift. Besides Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover and Omnisexual and just being a really true to myself, free-spirited artist, here's one of the biggest gifts I can give to women because it worked. You're right. I saved my embryos when I was 31, maybe 32. I knew that I wasn't ready to have children. So in a way, I was touring a lot. I was just not in a place emotionally to give up my life. I loved my art. I wanted to keep doing my art 14 hours a day. I wanted to keep touring. So I knew I shouldn't have children because it would have been totally selfish. So I decided to save my embryos, and I was one of the first people. I don't know anyone else who did it at that time. In fact, at that time, I had to go to Las Vegas and work with this kook of a doctor who didn't even label the test tubes. So it's a miracle that it worked, to be honest with you. But it did. Then when I was 43, I had my first child. We defrosted the embryos, and Dashiell was born. And then when I was 49, I did the rest of my embryos. So they're basically twins, separated by 6 years because they really were conceived together. But the part of it that really works, that's the science, and the science works. But the part that worked for me, Mariah, is that I had children when I was ready. And I was ready to devote myself to my children. And that, I think, is important. You cannot depend on a partner. Whether you're in any kind of relationship, there's no perfect partner, and women always end up carrying the bag. They always end up being they often end up being left or betrayed, or they're not supported by their partner. And women have to wake up and go, that's the way it's been since history has began. That's the way it may be with you. Don't romanticize the process of being a mother. It's such hard work. It takes so much support. You have to be ready, and you can't have a full-blown career. Well, you can if you're very, very wealthy, or if you have a great family who's going to support you. But that's not everybody. So I didn't have that family support, and I wasn't wealthy enough to do it on my own and have a million nannies, which, by the way, doesn't work for everyone. And Mariah, I didn't want to have a million nannies. I wanted to be there. I didn't want to be working and then just come home and kiss my kids goodnight. So this has worked for me, and I'm telling you, my health is great. I feel as vibrant and healthy as when I was 30, if not more, because I'm more stable. Because I've gotten better as I got older, and a lot of women can say that. So for me, being a mom, an older mom, really works. And I want to say to other women, they have to protect themselves by saving their eggs or their embryos so that they can do it when they're totally ready, because they may find themselves single. And it doesn't mean you can't have great friends and all that, but don't make your partner be responsible for your children if they can't be. You know, it's very rare to have a great partner who's truly willing to be 100% in it with you. That's what I wanted to say.
Great. I actually agree on everything with you, because I think the most important thing is when women are ready just to have children, and like not the age. I'm not really sure who invented this kind of things, that till 30 you need to have children, and like this is a real hard work, and you need to work besides, and also motherhood, like it's unpaid work, it is really hard. And I think that women, like, they need to trust themselves and just do what they do what they like, and have children if they want to and when they are ready. So
I so agree with you. And then also, you know, I consider if it hadn't worked with my embryos, I would have adopted. But the thing is, now I had the embryos. I had done it. So I said, okay, I'll have these children. But the truth is, I don't think anyone should ever be worried about having children, because there's so many children who need to be adopted.
yeah.
You know? And there's never any guarantee that your own children are going to be better for you. There's no guarantee ever with children. You're always taking a chance. So you may as well, if you can't have children or you've missed that window or whatever, or your eggs aren't healthy, just adopt a child or more.
All right, do you know any musicians or singers from Ukraine?
No, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't. And the only reason I don't is because, well, maybe I do and don't know it. The only reason I don't is because I don't have enough time, because I am a mother of two, a single mother of two, to really investigate. But I heard that you're an amazing singer and musician, so I was hoping that you would be the first one that I got to meet.
All right. So right now I will sing you a Ukrainian folk song, which is called Цвіте терен, like a small passage, and I hope you will like it. Цвіте терен, цвіте терен, листя опадає, хто в любові не знається, той горя не знає, хто в любові не знається, той горя не знає. A small passage.
That was so beautiful. Do you know, do I pronounce it Mariah?
Like, yeah, Maria.
Maria. Oh, it's spelled Mariah. Maria, could you send me just an MP3 of your vocal?
Of course.
Because I would love to sing on it with you, like maybe some backgrounds or something. That was so beautiful, and it made me actually cry.
Thank you very much. I will sing, yeah. I can actually send you the link for my YouTube channel where this interview
Correct.
will be, and also I post their covers from my songs also. Like a lot of Ukrainian songs I sing in different languages, so I'm really glad that you liked it.
I love it so much. Thank you so much. You're an awesome person, and I can tell. I really hope that you can change the world, because you're the kind of person humanity needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for talking. I really enjoy talking with you because we have the same opinions about some topics, and it was like really interesting to speak with you, and I was really like really exciting. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Maria. Take care. Have a wonderful day, and please take care. And I will go to YouTube and we'll promote it. But if I can get an MP3, it would be wonderful to do something with that. I could sing along with you on my, in my studio or something.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Take
for
care.
talking. And good luck with your life, with children. And bye.
Bye. Take care.